Every individual street is street by street. Council knows what's there. We know how many buildings, we know how many people. When we look at where growth is happening, we look at what can that street take. We have experts, planning, we have traffic, we have engineers of every description. No decision is taken lightly. And I know that we're all here tonight to talk about the zones. And can I just say, before I finish, that, and I will be here at the end to speak to anyone who wants to speak to me, Glenora councillors and council, when we translated the current zones from 2002 into the current zones, only one thing has changed. And I challenge anyone in this room to tell me other than that. Only one thing has changed. We put a mandatory height limit, whereas before that, there was no height limit. So where you would sit next door to you at the house, and you know a 4-story coming, well, there could have been a 6 or an 8 or a 10-story there before. But now, it can never be more. I'll finish with it. So when we finish, if you want to take that up with me, I'm not running, I'm right here, and I'll speak to you at the end. But what I'd like to say is the City of Glenora does acknowledge, and the councillors do acknowledge, that we live here with you. We live in the City of Glenora. And we always, and especially myself, I want to be here forever. I'm not running away. My phone number's in the on the council website, and I'm happy to meet anyone, anytime, to speak about planning. And I will, look, this is not my event, and I'm not going to take questions right now, but I will at the end. So, again, thank you for this opportunity. Glenora is a great place. You are living in the best city in Australia, and we will continue to make it.
I would, as a planner myself, I would question whether all of those zones are in appropriate locations when you look at planning from a holistic perspective. Looks as though in some areas, the areas where you would perceive that you would get least resistance have been selected over those more appropriate. When I say more appropriate, I look at the infrastructure, the transport, as well as the social infrastructure in those areas. Can any of the councillors respond to that? Why these areas? Why not other areas which have better transport and social infrastructure?
The areas that are the growth zones are the areas that are in the, what we would call the diversity areas, the villages, the shopping centres, the railway stations, the major activity centres.
Okay, but
that has been the same for many years.
Those activity centres are manufactured.
Sure.
Have you looked at the Rob Adams modelling from, I think it was about 2010, when he actually identified that you could have 4-story developments along transport corridors?
Yep. And
that would be on the transport corridor. We're not going 800 metres back, we're not going a kilometre back from that transport corridor. Why has Glenora identified the masses, even areas a kilometre from a train station? And as transport planner, you know that people are reluctant to walk more than 800 metres to get to a destination. We have areas that have been identified with increased density that are beyond 800 metres from a train station. As I said before, we have a radial rail network. We don't have a bus network. Okay? So you're fostering car dependence with the areas that you've identified in much of South and North Road anyway. Okay? Those are not appropriate. When you say we've got a good deal, it's a load of rubbish.
When you were looking at what the options were opening up the whole planning scheme. Well, that wasn't going to happen. The areas that we're still talking about have been in place for many, many years, long before us as councils come together. What we have simply
But you had the opportunity to change that, to question it. You've got to be a challenge the council officers. Be a critical thinker. Don't be submissive to the CEO. Don't be submissive to the directors. Question them. Okay, don't take their word as gospel. They're not necessarily the experts in the field. Don't take expert reports as gospel either.
They might be lazy.
That's it. And you have to wonder whether they are.
The information that we take as a council group, it is not just from council. It comes from a variety of places. It comes from state government. It comes from the planning authority. It comes from council. It comes from what we see in other municipalities. we put together as human beings the best thing that we can for our city. Is it right or wrong? We have. We will do our best to make sure everyone that lives here is as happy as I am. And look, you can also say that I could have stayed home. I didn't have to come here and face you. Yes, I do. I'd say most developers don't. I'd say most developers don't. Developers rip up our
I appreciate it. First of all, I acknowledge that you have come out publicly, and so has Councillor Lobo, in saying that you were arguing very strongly for consultation prior to any so-called submission going into the Minister for Planning. So that's fine. But I think from the feeling here, obviously, this is something that should have happened right at the beginning. As a lot of people here have said, they had to find out from real estate agents how their houses were zoned and what was likely to happen in the future. That should never, ever, ever have happened when the logo of Glen Ira is to consult and listen to community views. Community views, as far as I can see, have been totally ignored. As also somebody else said. So the other thing that you said previously, Councillor Rocketel, was that we as residents should start agitating. I'd like to put the onus on councillors, whether it's individual councillors or council as a group. It is not our job to do the agitating. You have heard what most people have had to say. It is your job to get off your backside and actually agitate. Commitment to these people here now that you will go back and you will tell the officers that councillors are prepared to move an amendment, as the petition says, that to renegotiate, reassess, reevaluate with up-to-date current data, not based on what's going to happen 85 years down the track, but what's likely to happen in the next decade, as countless other councils have done in their submissions, that you want this council to put in possible amendments to the current zones that preserves the full environmental, social and all kinds of parking amenities for residents of Glen Ira. Will you give that commitment?
Thank you for your question, and certainly Councillor Lobo would, I'm sure, agree that there are councillors, Councillor Lobo, myself included, that are agitating amongst the councillor group that we should have consulted. We have looked at what might council be prepared to do. Certainly requested of officers to provide information about if council were to put a proposal for an amendment to the planning minister, what might the consequences be? The information that we've received back from council officers is that the protections that we currently have, being that 78% of the municipality is protected to have no more than two-storey development, that we could potentially lose those protections. So we could potentially go backwards when compared to
ministers
there might be a new minister. And that's why I did ask that residents agitate on this issue, because as councillors, and I'm sure Councillor Lobo would agree, we can only speak to our councillors and get as much support from other councillors as we can. But certainly, when residents contact us, and I can certainly testify that this is the case, when residents contact us and let us know that this is an important issue to us, that is something that councillors take on board. And councillors certainly listen to residents more than they do other councillors. So that is why I certainly ask that you do contact councillors to let them know your views. The more we hear from you, the more it's likely that more councillors take action.
Take this as contact.
I heard you.
No, No,
There are 9
seriously,
councillors.
this is the only consultation that has been undertaken on the zones, and it has been put together by the residents.
Exactly. So we need to hear.
But we hear from councillors.
Why do we have to do it?
You need to listen.
Certainly, and not just me though, there are 9 councillors, so you need to contact all of the councillors, and I encourage you to do that.
Try and get them to come here one night and actually, have another meeting.
Oh, we could have the theaterette.
We vote you guys in, you've got 2 years to do something about it. If you want to be voted in again, there's people that are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in properties that going in the
We're
shit.
the 22% that are affected by
It's
it.
emotional. It's
Okay,
not
Mike.
hurting. Do something. You've got 2 years to represent us.
Okay,
I just wanted to reiterate something that Rosetta has pointed out, and that the opportunity for the councillors that are here tonight is simply to go away from tonight and ask themselves, why shouldn't we look at partial amendments to our planning scheme? Why shouldn't we, if there are as many people that were here this evening, and we have collected already hundreds and hundreds of others that aren't here this evening, who are seeking amendments, because yes, there are some great things that have been delivered in this planning scheme, and I congratulate council for doing so. However, I can only agree with the vast majority of people that had you consulted with us first before you actually went back with the scheme, you would have found some areas here that even you would agree are not appropriate for 3 or 4-storey developments. I live in a street which is way back from East Bentley. It's a quiet residential street. I woke up one morning and I've got a 3-storey height limit. Now, you say you don't necessarily have to give people the 3 stories, but the reality is you're inviting that. And by inviting that, we're seeing an incredible backlash. I've not seen it since I've been living in Rye, anything like the one we've seen most recently. So please, I appreciate this isn't a question, but please go away and think of the possibility that there are 4 councillors here. You only need 1 more councillor, and three of our own councillors in this area are in the room, but you only need 1 more councillor to actually consider what partial amendment is possible. Because if it's not going to be council's amendment, it's going to be the people's amendment. And that may be the only way in which we actually get a hearing. So on the one hand, I can say, honestly, I can congratulate you for at least trying to get it right, but we don't feel you've got it completely right. We feel that there's opportunities to change, and I really hope you will take that away this evening.
Thank you.